Chapter 1. I Can Turn Into a Fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen_Hong Long, 1, Huawala, 2, screw this sh*tty weather. Chu Xian cursed as he slammed the door of his shop. Chu Xian walked to the back cupboard and took out his mat and blanket. After washing up and brushing his teeth, he immediately dove under his blanket. The thunderstorm made him a little restless. One more month and then I'll be free, Chu Xian joked with a bitter smile. After he graduated, Chu Xian went out and found a job. After a year of abuse with nothing to show for it, he decided to make a go for it on his own. After thinking for almost a month, Chu Xian finally turned to his parents and borrowed 30 grand of their hard-earned money, renting a storefront on the Gu Wu 3 street near the university to sell ornamental fish. Since opening this shop, without even taking the expensive rent into account, each month's profit never exceeded 3,000. It had reached the point where Chu Xian couldn't even afford a separate apartment and had to move into this tiny 10-square-meter shop. Now there was only a month left on his lease. F***ck, this novel's author is actually a eunuch, 4. F***ck ush*tty eunuch. I hope you never get hard again. Chu Xian cursed when he found out the novel he was following was no longer going to be updated. Reading novels was Chu Xian's main pastime, and now that the novel he'd been following for more than a month turned out to be a eunuch, Chu Xian was suddenly frustrated and bored. As he listened to the thunder, all he could do was laugh bitterly. AI. Chu Xian sighed. Just to kill time, he started browsing through different phone games and randomly chose Big Fish Eat Little Fish. The WI.FI is so shitty. Can't you upgrade to 20M? And you call yourself a computer store? Curse you. I hope you close down just like me. Chu Xian swore shamelessly as he stared at the 20 kbps download speed. 98%. 99%, finally. Chu Xian stared at the number 99 on the phone screen, a smile on his face. Hong Long. A sudden lightning bolt cut through the sky and split the air with a deafening blast. The F***king rain needs an accompaniment, heaven is being such a little b***tch. Chu Xian heatedly complained after flinching while wrapped up in his blanket. And so Chu Xian didn't see his phone screen flash black with a new message. Big Fish Eat Little Fish is updating 1%, 10%, 20%. This kind of download speed could only be from some 100 megabytes optical fiber cable. After tidying his blanket, Chu Xian lay down again. Because of his bad eyesight, he held his phone in front of his face, but he soon felt his hand burning and saw sparks flying. F***ck me, my Samsung. 5, Chu Xian paled, screamed and hurriedly threw his phone to the side. Hong Long. Ping. 6, the phone exploded with the sound of thunder. Chu Xian felt his hand was fine, so he got up to turn on the light as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. What? Chu Xian looked around confusedly. His place was clean. What, Samsung grenades aren't nukes, how is there not even a piece of debris? Chu Xian thought as his face blackened. 7. His phone wasn't some 6,000 renminbi brand, but a 1,000 renminbi poor man's phone, he'd only used it for half a year and never expected it to explode. 8. F***ck, my money. Chu Xian shouted with a broken-hearted expression. F***ck my life. Ding. Big Fish Eat Little Fish is finished installing. Start. Y/N, a mechanical voice suddenly appeared in Chu Xian's head. 9. Chu Xian jumped and looked around in a panic. Who said that? Who are you? Where are you? Ding. Big Fish Eat Little Fish is finished installing. Start. Y/N, Chu Xian barely finished asking and the mechanical voice reappeared, causing Chu Xian's face color to change endlessly. sick. 10. Start. Even though everything that was happening was unbelievable, Chu Xian had read enough fiction that he gradually calmed down enough to respond. 11. Ding. Big Fish Eat Small Fish system is online and merged with Host. Host can now see personal status. The mechanical voice stopped, and in his mind appeared an image. Horseballs, sick. When he saw the image in his mind, Chu Xian cursed. In his mind floated a Samsung phone with a game and a character on the screen. The screen's character was identical to Chu Xian. A handsome appearance, melancholy expression, elegant hair, and, just a poor loser. Right next to his character was a game introduction. Name. Chu Xian status. Human, can transform into a fish. Level. 1, new, born little fish, 5 centimeters, combat power. 0.5 passive talent. Devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower-leveled fish. Big Fish Eat Little Fish system ability. Remold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control. What is this system? Big Fish Eat Little Fish. Is this a joke? How can such an unreliable system exist? Transform into a fish. You mean turn your mom into a fish? Chu Xian cursed. As he looked at the introduction of the system, his face became black. King hell, just try to turn me into a fish and see what happens. Chu Xian barely finished uttering these words when he horrifyingly discovered that the world in front of him had completely changed. What the? Chu Xian swallowed some saliva as he stared at the blanket right in front of him. He tried to turn his head but discovered that his head couldn't move at all. He couldn't feel his hand or feet. I turned into Kingfish. Chu Xian opened his mouth to speak but immediately felt like he had lost his life source and was so thirsty he was about to die. I want to be human again. Chu Xian hurriedly yelled in his mind. In a flash, his body returned to normal. Chu Xian looked down at his body with an incredulous expression. He walked up to his mirror to look at himself then said, transform into a fish. In the mirror, a pinky-sized fish appeared in his vision. As Chu Xian saw his body he finally believed that he really turned into a fish. He looked at the status in his mind again and saw some minor changes. Name. Chu Xian status. Fish, can transform into a human. Level. 1, new, born little fish, 5 centimeters. Combat power. 0.5 passive talent. Devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower-leveled fish. Big Fish Eat Little Fish system ability. Remold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control, fish. Human. I can actually transform. Chu Xian transformed back into a human and stared numbly into the mirror. Note. 1. This is what thunder sounds like in China. 2. This is what rain sounds like. 3. Or Ancient House Street. 4. Authors, and the novels, who discontinue their novels are referred to as eunuchs. I think this is probably because the authors are considered impotent for not finishing what they started, but the genius of this phrase may be eluding me. 5. Allegedly, Samsung is well known for creating excellent grenades. The conspiracy is whether this was written before or after Samsung released their product. 6. This is one of the many intricate sounds of exploding things, joining the ranks of boom and bang and many others. 7. The many abilities of the Chinese face are just another aspect of the inherent superiority of yellow-skinned people. 8. Or did he? Conspiracy hat on. 9. This is a question for our resident scientists. Is there a difference between a voice in your head and a voice outside it? Answer in the comments section for a chance to win an iPhone XXL. 10, and you thought I was kidding with 7, 11, I've never figured out whether or not I would actually say yes to this kind of thing. What would y'all do? Maybe if it was a really hot voice. Chapter 2. Eat and Evolve. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen_Big Fish Eat Little Fish. Does this mean that after I transform into a fish, I can grow and evolve without limits? Chu Xian's expression, 1, kept changing as he thought about the implications. Chu Xian approached the big fish tank at the back of the room. The tank was filled with ornamental fish. Zebra fish, koi fish, ray-fin fish, black banjo fish, little goldfish, Mickey fish, bucktooth tetra and many others. All these were cheap, small-sized fish bought from the seaside market for 10 renminbi at most, with the largest being only 10 centimeters in size. After observing these fish, Chu Xian pulled out a small net and placed some of the fish into a separate, smaller tank. Then he placed his finger into the tank and willed himself into a fish. Pa! With a sound of falling into water, Chu Xian transformed into a small fish. As he swished his tail, he felt comfortable and free. He swam quickly and naturally as if he had been a fish since birth. The little fish he turned into was an indistinguishable species and had no special features except a sharp row of teeth in its mouth. As he swam next to a bucktooth tetra, a message appeared in Chu Xian's mind. Bucktooth tetra. Level 0. Combat power. 0 passive talent. Nun Chu Xian was excited by this discovery, knowing the status of other fish was a big help for his own safety. After hesitating for a moment, Chu Xian steeled himself and bit at this bucktooth tetra. This 4 centimeters, tiny bucktooth tetra swam along minding its own business, with no idea what was in store for it. Ka-cha. Chu Xian heard the sound of breaking bones, sick, and the subtle taste of blood filling his mouth didn't faze him at all as he used his sharp teeth to tear a chunk off the bucktooth tetra's body. Chu Xian quickly swallowed this piece and bit at the bucktooth tetra a second time, and within a few short seconds, he devoured the entire fish. After eating this slightly smaller bucktooth tetra, Chu Xian felt the power in his body gradually growing, his speed improving, and a sense of comfort filling his body. He turned his increasingly intense stare towards the remaining dozen or so fish. With a flash of his tail, Chu Xian appeared next to another fish. Gaping his small mouth, Chu Xian took a bite out of the little fish's tail and began devouring it with big bites. Right, I also a special control power. After recalling that he had this ability, Chu Xian concentrated his mind and a mysterious scene appeared. It was as if he had an omnipresent view of everything and could see everything within a 1-meter radius of himself, including the table outside the tank. These dozen or so fish in the tank were like slaves, and he could arbitrarily rule over all of them. With a slight movement of his mind, all the bucktooth tetra, 2, fish swam towards him. Chu Xian opened his mouth and cruelly swallowed all of them down, bite by bite. Even after devouring 20 fish my body only strengthened a little, and I haven't even evolved yet. Am I supposed to just keep eating? Chu Xian thought to himself after all the fish in the tank were eaten. I'll just eat them all. Chu Xian thought to himself and immediately turned back into a human, reappearing at the spot where he had been standing. Chu Xian walked toward the big tank and dipped his hand in, reappearing in the tank. He immediately began using his powers. The 100+ fish all swam to his side, and Chu Xian gaped his mouth and began eating them all one bite at a time. Chu Xian continued to open his mouth and devoured them down bite after bite. Ding! Congratulations! Host leveled up, 10 centimeters size. The 4 attributes strength, speed, toughness, and bite. Force have been upgraded. Additionally, you may choose one attribute to power up. Finally, I upgraded. Chu Xian said, swimming excitedly. His body had grown from 5 centimeters directly to 10 and now appeared a cyan color, his scales were now closely knit, and his thin, long tail was very powerful, several rows of teeth could be seen, and they looked slightly intimidating. Strength, speed, toughness, bite force, of these 4 attributes. Strength probably means impact, speed should be swimming speed, toughness should be body hardness, and bite force is just the strength of my teeth. Chu Xian thought for a little, then decided to power up bite force. Bite force could improve his devouring speed, and all he needed now was to keep eating and evolving. After the system powered him up, Chu Xian felt that his mouth was more powerful, his teeth were sharper, and he could imagine that if he became a 20-something meter long fish, even a shark couldn't stand in his way. After turning back into his human form, Chu Xian looked at his information, and a big change had taken place. Name. Chu Xian status. Human, can transform into a fish, level 2, new, born little fish, 10 centimeters. Combat power. 2 passive talent. Devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower-leveled fish. Big fish eat little fish. System ability. Remold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control. His transformation excited him, but when he realized that there were only a dozen or so fish left in the tank, Chu Xian's face froze and he shook his head bitterly. Within those few minutes, he had already devoured 100+ small fish. All these were ornamental fish, and he had just eaten 500 to 600 RMBs worth of fish, enough for him to eat for 2 days. As he looked at the fish in the tank, each of them worth several RMB, Chu Xian decided against eating any more and dove back under his blanket to continue sleeping. That night was his happiest sleep. He dreamed of roaming the seas with an entourage of sharks, whales, gigantic octopuses, and in his wake wherever he went were majestic waves, as if he were the Dragon King. 3. The next day when he woke up, Chu Xian immediately checked his system. He was afraid that everything was just a beautiful dream, but after checking, he quickly let out the breath he was holding and smiled happily. After collecting his mat and blanket, Chu Xian opened the door of his shop, letting in a bright beam of sunshine that warmed up his whole body. The sky was an after-rain blue, and the sun was brilliant in the passing wind. 4. Chu Xian walked out, closing the door behind him. He bought a couple stuffed steam buns from Lady Wang next door, and after withdrawing 1,000 RMB, he rode his moped to the outskirts of the city. After half an hour, Chu Xian began to hear the crashing waves of the sea. Haiqing City was a seaside city, and the city tourism and fish industry were fully developed. In the Qingning district, there was a huge fishing area and fish market with hundreds of varieties of fish. All of Chu Xian's ornamental fish were from here. As soon as he entered the market, noise and foul fish smells welcomed him, but Chu Xian was used to it. He did not go to the ornamental fish section. Instead, he walked around the sea products. It was the fishing season, and the market was currently at its busiest time of the year. Every fish shop had a gigantic pool with tons of fish swimming inside, and in front of each of the pools was the fish type and price. Chu Xian came here in order to buy fish for his system so that he could grow big by eating smaller fish. At this point, his size was only 10 centimeters, so he needed to buy fish smaller than 10 centimeters. After walking around for half an hour, Chu Xian finally decided on a type of fish called Scomber japonicus, a very cheap type of ocean mackerel which was typically 20–40 centimeters long, with some shorter than 10 centimeters. "Boss, give me 120 of these small under 10 centimeters mackerel, you can give me the net, and I'll scoop them," Chu Xian said from the side of the pond, pointing at the small Scomber japonicus. 120, asked the owner absent-mindedly. Even though this young man made a strange request, he did not question it any further and simply handed him a net. Chu Xian took the net and tried to control it skillfully. To his glee, he could use his power even while human. In order to not arouse suspicion, Chu Xian did not make the fish swim directly into the net but just controlled them a little so that they did not resist being scooped. Chapter 3. Sky. High-priced fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristophaneso editor. Karen_120 Scomber japonicus was about 15 kilograms, and since few people bought this type of fish, the price was only 1 renminbi for half a kg. Altogether, Chu Xian only paid around 30 renminbi. Chu Xian loaded the fish onto his moped, drove back to his shop, locked the door and poured the fish into a tank. Ka ba, 1. Fish Chu Xian was already inside the tank, eating fish like mad. Due to the nature of the system, no matter how much he ate, he would never feel full. It was as if his stomach was a bottomless hole. Ding! Congratulations! Host has leveled up 20 centimeters. Strength, speed, toughness, and bite force has been upgraded. Host can choose an additional attribute to power up. After around 10 minutes, as Chu Xian was eating the 105th fish, the system sounded out again. Chu Xian was delighted and quickly finished eating the rest of the fish. He chose to power up his bite force again. 100 plus 10 centimeters fish is enough to level up once, increasing my body size to 20 centimeters and combat power to 4. If I'm not wrong, I will also need 100 plus fish just under 20 centimeters to increase my size another 10 centimeters, Chu Xian thought, as he rode back to the same shop at the market. In front of the confused shop owner, Chu Xian scooped out 240 fish, 120 each of fish under 20 centimeters and under 30 centimeters. This purchase cost him 500 plus RMB, not too expensive, well within his range. If it weren't for the inability of his moped to load any more fish, he would have bought another 120 of the 40 centimeters range fish. As he jumped on his moped and prepared to leave, a group of excited people came down the street, the leading two holding an iron bucket. Chinese bahaha, it's actually the Chinese bahaha. It's at least 50 kilograms. Exclaimed a shocked middle-aged passerby as he looked at the big fish in the iron bucket. Chinese bahaha. Chu Xian said, stunned. Heavens, it really is a Chinese bahaha. This size is at least 60,000 RMB, too. Yelled a shop owner who heard the middle-aged man shout. This shop owner looked over and shouted excitedly as well. One voice after another exclaimed, and more people were drawn by the noise and came to investigate. Come, come. Everybody move aside. We are going to the Yubao 3 yard to hold an auction. Anyone interested can come and look, shouted a young man. Let's go, let's go. Let's watch. The group of noisy people made way and followed behind. Chu Xian hesitated for a second and also decided to follow. Yubao Yard was a place in the fish market catered to high-end products. They had 3-head and even 2-head abalones, 4 Australian lobsters, Chinese 3-striped box turtle, sea cucumbers, red arowana, flowerhorn fish, and all kinds of precious fish and seafood. Anyone who came here was either wealthy or a buyer from a big restaurant. Any normal person definitely couldn't afford anything here. The auction platform was a high platform at the center of the yard, used to introduce new products and accept bids. Only products with a value higher than 10,000 renminbi were allowed. Very quickly, news that someone caught a Chinese bahaha spread and more people came. Chu Xian followed the flow of people walking to Yubao Yard. This was the first time he came to the Yubao Yard. The environment here was much better than the other markets that had only 20 or so sellers and fewer products. Here, the price of each fish or seafood was in the hundreds or thousands for half a kg. All the bosses who were inside buying things saw the flood of people coming in and watched expectantly. They could all guess that good stuff was coming. Oh! An auction, said a boss in an expensive suit, as he watched the people carrying the bucket walking towards the platform. The boss followed with interest. Everyone who had already been in the yard selling and buying also gathered around, and very quickly the platform was surrounded by 200 to 300 people. Ladies and gentlemen, please quiet down. Today us brothers caught a precious, 49 kilograms Chinese bahaha. I won't say more about the price, if there is any boss here who's interested in buying, the highest bidder will win. The two brothers took out the Chinese bahaha and turned it towards the spectators. Chu Xian looked curiously at the long body, flat side, and the long and thin tail of this 1-meter-long Chinese bahaha. An approximately 50 kilograms fish could be sold for a couple $100,000. That's crazy. 1 million. Just as Chu Xian marveled at the price of a couple $100,000, a sound from the crowd amazed him. 1 million. AF *** King million. 10,000 for half a kg. Are you kidding me, is he insane? Chu Xian turned to look at the middle-aged man who placed the bid with shock and amazement. 1,050,000. This fish is mine. Immediately after the first bid came another shout. The bystanders all gathered around excitedly. 1,050,000 for a fish, this was too exciting. The two brothers on the platform were also excited and loudly yelled, "Is there any bid higher than 1,050,000? Anyone?" 1,100,000, shouted an old man some tens of seconds later. Chu Xian's heart was beating through his chest. 1.1 million renminbi, he probably couldn't earn this much money in his entire life, yet a mere fish could be sold for this price. In the end, this fish was sold to the old man to the price of 1,200,000. The old man excitedly touched the fish and immediately called for the two young men at his side. Chinese bahaha, ah. In all these years, this is only the second time I've seen one. Ah, more than 10,000 RMB for half a kilo, when can I catch one? Yeah, if we catch one it'd be worth years of income. Chu Xian listened to these two fishermen's jealousy and felt the same. When he thought of the big fish eat little fish system inside of him, his blood started boiling. One day I'll turn into a huge fish and roam the entire ocean, catching precious fish, and then I'll become a rich man with expensive cars and fancy houses. 5. Chu Xian yearned and dreamed, but he still had a long way to go before he could see that day. He was now only 20 centimeters long, he had to be careful of big rivers lest he face tragedy and get eaten by other fish, not to mention the conditions of the sea. Obviously, Chu Xian decided, he would not go out to the sea before he was 2 or 3 meters long. But, growing to 2 or 3 meters would be difficult. It was easy for him to level up right now, but if he wanted to level up once he reached 1 meter, his need for food would be terrifying. 4 to 6 kilograms fish's price was at least 300 to 400, possibly up to 500 or 600. 100 of these would be worth 30 to 40,000, and if he wanted to use the money to grow his size to 2 or 3 meters, he would need at least 5 million or even more. Let's just take it one step at a time. There will definitely be a way, Chu Xian said while shaking his head. Translator's thoughts. Aristofaniso. 1. Similar to ka-cha, no kappa. 2. So with an approximate 6 renminbi to $1 conversion rate, this estimate is around $10,000. Given that the average cost of living is also lower in China compared to the US, if this situation was transplanted to NA would the estimate be much more. I have no idea if the fishing market in China is similar to the US or if fish are actually this expensive. 3. Fish treasure. Your ubiquitous 100 treasure pavilion etc. would be the same character. 4. Huge abalones. Head is a measurement unit in Chinese for abalones. 3 heads abalone simply means 3 of these abalones weight half a kilo. Consequently, 2 heads abalone means 2 of these abalones weight half a kilo. 5. https://www.youtube.com/watch.v = rbhcfypq6nc. Chapter 4. Expensive ornamental fish. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Translator. Aristofaniso. Editor. Karen _ the crowd gradually dispersed, but no one stopped discussing the prized fish, even the merchants all sighed with jealousy. 1. Chu Xian took a deep breath and shelved all his fantasies, but just when he was about to leave, a shop by the side suddenly caught his eye. This shop was also a fish shop, but instead of food, it sold ornamental fish. In front of the shop were two big water tanks. In one tank was an 80 centimeters plus, red and large ornamental fish with a plastered sign reading, Red Arowana, highest quality, price, 130,000. In the other was a pair of beautiful stingrays selling for 88,000. Even though Chu Xian also sold ornamental fish, his inventory couldn't even be compared to 100th or 1000th of what this store sold. He was puzzled, these two fish were merely pretty, why were they so expensive? Chu Xian curiously approached the store. The store owner looked up as Chu Xian entered and gave him a smile even though he didn't think he was a paying customer. Inside the shop, there were many delicate, small fish tanks. Each tank had an exquisite ornamental fish, arowana, platinum ghost rocket fish, koi fish, anemone fish, Thai tiger fish, golden arowana and many other varieties filled the area. Each fish sold for 1,000 to tens of thousands RMB. What do you think, friend? These fish are pretty beautiful, aren't they? Said the owner from his stool. Beautiful, very beautiful, praised Chu Xian sincerely. He asked, Boss, do people actually buy such expensive fish? Hee, the owner laughed. How is it possible that no one buys them? I'm even afraid that I don't have enough to sell. Son, you can't just look at the type of fish I'm selling, said the owner, as he fished a few cigarettes out of his pocket. Handing one to Chu Xian, he bragged, all my ornamental fish are caught in the wild. Just look at the colors, so bright and shiny and each one so vigorous. I tell you, all these fish will be sold within 2 months. They all cost me a lot of effort, and it's such a shame I can only get around 100 of these premium quality ornamental fish each year. Are you thinking these fish are really expensive? Actually, they're not expensive at all, they're already a couple % cheaper than the market price. For example, this highest quality blood, red arowana fish can be sold for 140,000 in other markets. These days, high-quality ornamental fish are becoming exceedingly rare, each year a higher price. If you can keep them for 2 years, their price would increase by at least 30 to 40,000. Chu Xian accepted the boss's cigarette and laughing bitterly, sighed, I guess it's really true that rare things are more expensive. There really are so many rich people, huh? Ha ha. The boss thought his words were funny and laughed, yeah man, there are so many rich people. Once they reach a certain amount of wealth, they start caring more and more about face. Now, look at all these big bosses' offices or fancy hotel lobbies, all of them have all kinds of huge ornamental fish, and 10,000 for one fish is nothing to these people. Now, if you have the highest quality ornamental fish, you don't have to be worried about not selling. Just last year at an international fish exhibit in Guangzhou, a red arowana was bought by a Japanese buyer for 5 million RMB, and this spring a golden arowana in our Haiqing city sold for 2,800,000. 5 million. 2,800,000. Chu Xian licked his lips. 2,800,000 was more than enough to buy a nice house near the city center, not to mention what he could do with 5 million. Hee, boss, actually I also sell ornamental fish, but my fish are just a couple RMB, Chu Xian jokingly said. Haha. Then, young man, you need to work harder, try to expand your business. Try buying some large farmed ornamental fish. If you get some mutated species, you can also sell them for several tens of thousands, the shop owner said with a smile. Help me out, boss. Share some of your experience. Chu Xian retorted with a laugh. He took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and said, Boss, try some of mine. They aren't as good as yours, so don't look down on me. Huh, all cigarettes are the same to me, said the owner with a laugh. This shop owner was very talkative, so he took a cigarette, crossed his legs and began enthusiastically lecturing Chu Xian. Chu Xian listened at his side for more than half an hour and learned many things about expensive ornamental fish, and the boss was even able to finish 2 sales at the same time. Everything in the shop had a clearly marked price that nobody dared to bargain with, unlike Chu Xian's small shop where people bargained over even 10 renminbi fish. When he left the shop, Chu Xian suddenly remembered that he'd left all the fish he bought at the entrance and was relieved when he ran over and found them still there. He got on his moped and drove to his store. From afar, Chu Xian spotted a beautiful silhouette framed by his storefront, holding a book and quietly waiting by the side of the door. As he looked at this silhouette, Chu Xian's heart felt warm, and he sped up in his approach, calling out, "Xiaoying, what are you doing here? You tell me. You don't answer your phone and your store is closed." "I had no choice but to wait here." Xiaoying pouted, glancing at Chu Xian with a discontent expression. Chu Xian looked at her cute expression and his lips twitched into a smile. In this life, as a loser, his proudest achievement was this girlfriend. Chu Xian was 2 grades older than Xiaoying in college, and as soon as they met at a freshman welcoming party, Chu Xian began crazily pursuing her. At that time, Chu Xian's classmates all called him a toad wishing to eat swan meat. Xiaoying was very beautiful, and in Haiqing, she was definitely one of the most attractive girls. She was 165 centimeters tall with straight black hair, long eyelashes, watery eyes, and 2 dimples that appeared every time she smiled, a real jaw-dropper. At that time, there were at least 8 guys chasing her, but the least promising one was actually the one who won the beauty. When Xiaoying agreed to date him, Chu Xian was also surprised. He knew he had no merit except for being okay-looking, but Xiaoying agreed to date him anyway. In her words, he was the sincerest and the cutest. This made all his male classmates jealous, and they all regretted not chasing after Xiaoying. Maybe they could have been the person with the beauty. Their unpromising relationship had lasted for 5 years, and now, even though Chu Xian graduated and Xiaoying was still a senior, the change didn't really affect their relationship even as Chu Xian struggled with his business. Xiaoying also came from the countryside, and even in this money-worshipping society, she had turned down many rich kids to stay by his side. Chu Xian loved her all the more for it. It was also because of Xiaoying that he rented a shop on Guwu Street to be closer to the college. "I lost my phone so I couldn't answer your calls," Chu Xian said while getting off his moped. He reached out and grabbed Xiaoying's arms, smiling. "How could you lose your phone? What are you doing losing so many things? Don't you have your head screwed on right?" Xiaoying said with slight anger, pretending to screw on his head. "Hee, it doesn't need to be, having you with me is enough," Chu Xian joked and opened the store door. Chapter 5. Evolution Road. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso Editor. Karen _ you went to pick up supplies? Xiaoying asked while looking at the big bag of fish on Chu Xian's moped. "I bought some fish for one of my clients." Chu Xian answered with a white lie. He wasn't planning on sharing his unbelievable transformation ability with Xiaoying. "Oh," Xiaoying replied with a nod. Chu Xian had to hurriedly stop her when she stepped forward to help him carry the bag. "Chu Xian, I'm going to start an internship soon," Xiaoying suddenly remarked. "Internship?" Chu Xian was stunned for a second, then hurriedly asked, "Where is this internship?" Xiaoying saw his nervousness and giggled. Showing off a little, she said, "It's an internship at school. This year our department had 1 slot, and luckily, I just passed the school's exam, so I got the position of the intern substitute teacher. Now I can intern and prepare for grad school at the same time." "The internship is at school?" Chu Xian replied happily. "That's great. Right now the job market is pretty rough, so staying in school is the best choice." Xiaoying always received top marks and scholarships, and in her senior year, she even subbed for some of the freshman classes for a while. She was the scholarly goddess type. 1. Haiqing Standard was a second-rank university. As long as you got an internship, there was at least an 80% chance of becoming an official teacher. Even the standards required of new teachers were much higher than those of any regular white-collar worker. N2, I never thought they would keep me, it was so sudden. Xiaoying happily replied as well. Huh, it's because my honey is too smart. From now on I'll call you Xiaoying Lao Shi. 3, Chu Xian said while wiggling his eyebrows. Leaning in he whispered, come, Xiaoying Lao Shi, let this student kiss you. Stop it. Xiaoying cried, holding back his face with both hands to stop his shamelessness, but Chu Xian was too experienced and caught her thin waist and leaned in again. Next Saturday we have a get-together, and you have to accompany me, Xiaoying said while pulling on Chu Xian's arm, her face blushing from the intimacy. 4. It's your classmates' gathering. What does that have to do with me? I'm not in the same grade as you. Chu Xian said with a laugh. 5. It's not just my grade. There will also be other classes and grades there, and it doesn't matter anyway cause you have to come with me. Xiaoying said emphatically while leaning her head on his shoulder. Okay. I'll definitely go, but I'm just going to embarrass you again, Chu Xian said with some discomfort. Other than being a bit plain-looking, there's nothing bad about you. Chu Xian said with a smile and standing on tiptoe, kissed him on the cheek. Hee, I'm just afraid everyone's going to be jealous of me. Chu Xian chuckled and said, give me another kiss. Stop. Xiaoying said, lightly pushing him away. Hurry up and buy a new phone. Okay, Chu Xian said while nodding. He went with Xiaoying to buy a 500 renminbi phone. In his head, he thought, I'm going to lose it anyway, so why bother with expensive things, but only he knew the bitterness in his heart. He felt blessed for having a girlfriend like Xiaoying. At the beginning of their relationship, the most expensive gift he bought was a pair of rings worth 2,000 plus RMB for her birthday. The gift made Xiaoying happy for a long time and she frequently wore the ring on her middle finger, but afterwards, she strictly forbade him from buying any more expensive gifts. Even after Chu Xian started working, when he wanted to give her some money, Xiaoying still refused and instead, found part-time work at school. As he watched her walk away, Chu Xian felt some heartache. A girl like her should be sitting in luxury cars, living the lifestyle of a princess, but instead, chose to stay with a nobody like him. Xiaoying, don't worry. I will make you the happiest woman in the world. Chu Xian swore with tight fists. After shutting the shop door, Chu Xian encountered some dead fish, so after cleaning them up, he began his evolution process. 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters. After eating all the fish, Chu Xian's body grew to 40 centimeters and all his attributes underwent great change. Name. Chu Xian status. Human, can transform into a fish. Level. 5, new born little fish, 40 centimeters. Combat power. 10 passive talent. Devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower-leveled fish. Big fish eat little fish system ability. Remold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control. Chu Xian was now level 5, had a combat power of 10 and had a high bite force from continuously powering it up. The most monstrous was his new combat power. The 30 cm Scomber Japonicus only had a combat power of 1, and Chu Xian could easily bite off its head in an instant kill. His new teeth were incredibly sharp and could easily crush rocks. If he tried to bite a human, he could definitely tear off a chunk of meat. I'm basically a piranha. Chu Xian thought excitedly. If his barely 40 centimeter long body had such a high combat power, maybe his dream to enter the ocean was not so far away. However, in order to grow as quickly as possible, Chu Xian still needed to buy more fish to eat. Buying fish required money, and right now Chu Xian had just over 20,000 left in his bank account, neither very little nor very much, but only a fool would think this was enough to get his body to 2 or 3 meters. To deal with this, Chu Xian had already thought of a way to make money, but he hadn't tried it yet and didn't know if it would be successful. Remold, Big fish eat little fish system's only ability at present could change the shape of self or fish under your control. He thought of a use for this ability when he was in the Yubao Yard ornamental fish shop. The price of ornamental fish was related to the fish's color and shape, and if he was able to change the fish, then he could transform ordinary ornamental fish into expensive, precious ones. Hopefully I can succeed. Chu Xian prayed silently and scooped an ordinary goldfish out of the tank. Goldfish were the most common ornamental fish and were incredibly cheap. A 7 or 8 cm goldfish cost only 1 RMB. Chu Xian heard from the Yubao ornamental fish shop boss that goldfish also had many valuable types and that a valuable, small goldfish could also be sold for a couple thousand RMB. He had a vague impression of panda goldfish, 12-red goldfish, red phoenix goldfish, etc. Opening up his computer, Chu Xian started looking up all the valuable goldfish and soon found rare and expensive kinds. So beautiful! Chu Xian exclaimed in surprise. He couldn't help but compare the picture with the dull and ugly-looking goldfish in his hands, and his mouth twitched. Chapter 6. Remolding the Goldfish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen _ to remold. 1. I first have to control the fish. Chu Xian willed it, and suddenly he gained an omnipresent view of a 4-meter radius around him, in addition to control over the goldfish in the fish tank. Little goldfish. Level 2 combat power. 0 passive talent. None remold. Chu Xian said in his mind, and suddenly the cell phone screen in his brain showed a 3-dimensional image of the little goldfish. Cluster all the red in one spot, commanded Chu Xian, and all the red on the goldfish's body clustered on its belly. Grow the tail a little, Chu Xian commanded again, and the little goldfish's tail grew rapidly. Turn the red into black. Chu Xian commanded once again, but the result made him frown. The red was still red. After some testing, Chu Xian finally discovered the limits to remolding. Big fish eat little fish system's remolding ability could arbitrarily change the shape of a fish or cluster and remove color, but it couldn't turn white into black or black into red. Basically, remolding used the existing fish as the base and couldn't create something out of nothing. It's fine, even this is enough. Chu Xian said excitedly. While referencing a picture on the internet, he began remolding the little goldfish. Remolding was just like designing and creating, and the prospect excited Chu Xian a lot. After about 5 minutes, the screen in his brain showed a cute and beautiful fish, and as Chu Xian compared the fish to the model, he realized it wasn't one bit worse than the one on the computer. It might have even been a little better. All natural goldfish have slight flaws, but his goldfish was different. It was perfect and flawless as if it was photoshopped. After remolding in his mind, Chu Xian said "remold" in his heart, and suddenly the goldfish in the tank underwent earth-shattering changes, too. The goldfish now had a pure, snow-white body with neatly arranged rows of scales, a pure white head, beautiful red circles around the mouth and eyes, and an incredibly beautiful tail, as if it were a mermaid with red makeup. After Chu Xian molded it, the goldfish had a long, red tail that fanned out behind it like silk with 2 red ventral fins decorating its belly. It really was an incredibly beautiful, perfect work of art. Amazing. Unbelievable. Chu Xian's eyes shone as he stared at this goldfish which had successfully transformed into a Dan Feng 3 goldfish. It's too bad it's so small, or else it would be worth a couple hundred, or even a couple thousand. Remolding downgraded the fish, so the 12-centimeter goldfish was now only 6 or 7 centimeters. However, this problem could be easily overcome. He could just remold larger fish. As he looked at this perfect Dan Feng goldfish, Chu Xian immediately reached for all the other goldfish in the tank. This pure black goldfish can definitely be remolded into a panda goldfish or crown pearl goldfish. This red and black one can become a Zhu Sha, 4, bubble-eyed goldfish or 12-red one. Chu Xian looked at the 9 goldfish in front of him and his eyes filled with dollar signs, greedy face. Unable to control his excitement, he quickly started to mold each of them one by one. Ha 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 ha. I made it. I hit the jackpot. I'm going to be rich. Chu Xian shouted and laughed 20 minutes later with the beautiful goldfish swimming gracefully in front of him. Each and every one of the 10 fish in the tank was a piece of art, and though he didn't know the exact value, he knew they weren't going to be cheap just judging by their shape and color. In an extremely good mood, Chu Xian sent Xiaoying a WeChat message saying, "Babe, good night. XOXO." When she received the message, Xiaoying laughed and hugged her phone. Early the next morning, Chu Xian woke up and immediately checked on the goldfish in the tank. They were all lively and healthy. This was another merit of remolding. Even though the remolded goldfish were now just as beautiful as luxury goldfish, they were still normal goldfish inside with the robustness of normal goldfish. Chu Xian fed them some food, packed them up, and rode his moped to the fish market. He rode all the way to the Yubao yard at the center of the market. Holding the tank full of hope and expectations, he walked into the ornamental fish shop. "Yo little brother, you're back again." The shop owner greeted him curiously. "Yeah boss, I'm here for your help." Chu Xian nodded and approached him excitedly. Putting down the tank, he said, "Please take a look and see how much these goldfish are worth." "Oh." The shop owner looked inquisitively at Chu Xian and suppressing a chuckle, looked down at the fish. "This." The shop owner jumped up. Leaning closer to the tank, he said, "These are Panda, 12. Red, Zhu Sha Bubble Eyes, and Crown Pearl Goldfish." Chu Xian was happy about the shop owner's reaction and hurriedly replied, "Yes, I bought these from one of my friends for 5,000 RMB BVEC ZZE." The shop owner clicked his tongue and ignored Chu Xian. He bent over and pressed his face against the side of the tank. He looked intensely, scrutinizing the fish with his eyes. Clicking his tongue again, he said, "Top grade top grade. Look at the colors, the shapes. Beautiful." The shop owner admired them for over a minute and finally raised his head and said with some jealousy, "Little brother really struck gold." "Then boss, what are they worth?" Chu Xian hurriedly asked. "I still need to examine them more closely. All your fish are precious varieties. Each of them should be worth more than 2,000 RMB. Do you mind if I take them out to measure?" the shop owner replied. "I don't mind, of course I don't mind." Chu Xian replied with a nod. When he heard that each fish was worth 2,000, his eyes gained a burning intensity. "And," the shopkeeper affirmed with a light grunt and took out a special transparent net. He gently scooped up one of the goldfish. Upon closer examination, he murmured, "This goldfish has already matured, but it's a little small." Chu Xian's heart thumped nervously. Even though the small size will influence the value, these goldfish are the rarest kind, so the small size won't matter much. This panda goldfish is worth 2,000, and if the buyer likes it a lot, even 3,005 is possible. 3,000. Chu Xian said excitedly. "Does that mean that these fish altogether can be sold for 20,006? That's no problem, haha. Little bro, you hit the jackpot this time," the shop owner said while laughing. "How about you sell them to me? I can give you 20,000. Chu Xian's eyes flashed with excitement and immediately said, "Of course. Of course, I'll sell to you." "Huh, that's great. I can transfer the payment to your WeChat account," the shop owner said happily. "Okay," Chu Xian affirmed happily with a nod before hesitantly asking, "Boss, if I can get more of these types of goldfish, do you want them?" "More?" the shop owner replied dazedly. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, he said, "Little bro, it really isn't that simple. I can buy at most 10 of these every 1 to 2 months. They're not easy to sell if there are too many. Goldfish are small ornamental fish after all and aren't as popular as the large ones." Chu Xian was a little disappointed. Nodding his head, he said, "That's fine then. Thanks a lot, boss. There's no need to thank me, and don't call me boss this boss that. From now on just call me Old Wang 5 or Brother 5, that's what my friends call me. Haha, don't forget me when you get your hands on some large ornamental fish in the future." Old Wang 5 said with a big laugh. Old Wang 5. Chu Xian dazedly replied. Yesterday they had spoken for half an hour and the shopkeeper hadn't told him his name, but today after Chu Xian brought in these fish, he was finally noticed and acknowledged properly. "Of course, Brother 5. My friend is out of the country, but he has many connections. He'll probably be able to get his hands on some more precious ornamental fish." "Huh, that's great. That's great. In the future, if you sell to me, I promise you a reasonable price." Old Wang 5 said happily. Chapter 7. Earn money, spend money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen_Chu Xian remained at Old Wang 5's place for another half hour, with most of the time spent asking goldfish-related questions. What kinds of goldfish are more expensive? How do you tell a goldfish's age? How do you price a goldfish? Etc., etc. Old Wang 5 also wanted to strengthen his relationship with Chu Xian, so he explained everything earnestly until Chu Xian had a foundational understanding of goldfish. When the 20,000 RMB entered his account, Chu Xian's face was full of excitement. 1. If 10 goldfish could sell for 20,000 RMB, then 100 fish would be 200,000 and 1,000 fish would be 2 million. 1,000 goldfish wouldn't even cost him 1,000 RMB. If Qinghai City had enough people willing to buy all 1,000 goldfish, maybe he could expand his business to sell fish to all of China or maybe even the whole world. He could become a billionaire just by selling goldfish. At this point, Chu Xian's heart pumped madly. He then entered a shop where he bought Scomber japonicus, Pacific mackerel, and spent around 700 RMB buying 120 nearly 40 centimeters fish. After purchasing all these fish, Chu Xian decided to add on some 50 centimeters and 60 centimeters fish before leaving, but the largest Scomber japonicus was only around 40 centimeters, so he needed to find some other species of fish. However, after looking around for a while, he couldn't find any other type of fish as cheap as the mackerel. Chu Xian's only choice was 3 RMB for half a kg of freshwater fish. 2.5 centimeters of freshwater fish was half a meter, and a half-meter long fish was about 3 kilograms, so a whole fish cost almost 30 renminbi. 100 fish was 3,000, and another 160 centimeters fish would total 6 or 7,000 RMB. After all this, Chu Xian bought 100 small goldfish from a goldfish store. This time, the goldfish he bought were all over 10 centimeters long. For the first time, spending 7,000 RMB at once didn't cause Chu Xian's heart to ache, when he reasoned that all he needed was to sell 3 or 4 more of his remolded goldfish to break even. A smile turned his face into a chrysanthemum. 500 kilograms of fish, my shop can only fit this much, Chu Xian thought to himself. He wanted to buy the 70 centimeters fish as well, but when he thought of the size of his room, he gave up helplessly. Also, he had some trouble finding 70 centimeter long freshwater fish, so if he wanted fish of that size, he had to buy ocean fish. However, 70 centimeter long ocean fish would normally be around 4 or 500 RMB, so 100 of them would be 50,000 renminbi. Moreover, fish longer than 1 meter were very rare, and the ones available were all very expensive. Chu Xian had to find another solution, prioritizing quantity over quality. For this method to work, the quantity would have to be terrifying. Chu Xian rented a shipping truck and had other people deliver all the fish to his store. After unloading the fish, Chu Xian once again closed his door. Licking his lips, he transformed into a fish and dove into the tank. Sharp teeth filled his big mouth as he greedily chomped and ate. Close to 500 kilograms of fish was devoured in half an hour. A bloody tang filled the room. In the fish tank remained a black 70 cm long fish covered in blood, its mouth filled with rows of sharp teeth. Name: Chu Xian. Status: fish, can transform into a human. Level: 8, new born little fish, 70 centimeters. Combat power: 25. Passive talent: Devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower-leveled fish. Big fish eat little fish. System ability: Remold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control. After leveling up 3 times in a row, Chu Xian chose not to power up his bite force. Instead, he powered up his toughness and strength. With a level of 8 and combat power of 25, he felt that as long as he was in the water, he could definitely tear apart and eat an adult man if he wanted to. From now on, it'll be much harder to level. Chu Xian thought to himself as he turned back into a human, but soon he laughed to himself and said, anyway, leveling up isn't so important now. Right now, making money is most important. Glancing at the 100 goldfish in the tank, Chu Xian smirked confidently. Noting the time, he decided to eat lunch before doing anything else. Gu Dao Recipe was the most famous seafood restaurant on Gu Wu Street. It took up 500 square meters in a 3-story ancient building and had big red lanterns hanging by its front door. Just a glimpse of the building made one feel like they had been transported back to ancient times. Today, I'm going to have a taste of the seafood at this Gu Dao Recipe restaurant everyone is raving about and really treat myself for a change. Chu Xian said while standing in front of the building. He had a light smile on his face before he confidently walked inside. Welcome, sir. How many customers will be dining today? Asked an attentive waitress wearing ancient-style clothing. 1, answered Chu Xian. 1 customer. Sir, please follow me, the waitress said with a gesture, as she led Chu Xian further into the restaurant. Gu Dao Recipe Seafood Restaurant had single seats, double seats, and private rooms. Chu Xian sat down and looked over the menu. Zhe, a bowl of rice for 10 renminbi in seawater vegetables at a minimum of 30 renminbi, Chu Xian said while clicking his tongue. Lightly shaking his head, he ordered a vegetable dish and steamed codfish. The food was served quickly, and as Chu Xian stared at the small plate of codfish, he asked the waitress with confusion, this little piece of codfish costs me more than 500 renminbi. Is it even 500 grams? He. Sir, our codfish are all deep sea silver codfish, not farmed codfish. The waitress laughed. Deep sea codfish. Chu Xian murmured, before taking a bite. The tender taste was delicious, and Chu Xian couldn't help but take yet another bite. It really is delicious. Chu Xian exclaimed. The aromatic rice came in a fan shell, and the seawater vegetables were crisp and tasty. Sighing to himself, Chu Xian began to yearn more and more for the precious fish and seafood in the ocean. This meal cost around 700 RMB. For Chu Xian, this was an extreme luxury, but in his thinking, money only had value if he spent it. Besides, he already had a plan to earn back the money. It's good to be rich. Chu Xian couldn't help but exclaim as his personal waitress escorted him out of the building after he finished his meal. Just as he was about to reach his shop, a young woman suddenly blocked his way, so Chu Xian stopped in confusion. The girl was slim and tall, almost the same height as him, and had a pair of elegant legs and a head of long, brown hair. Her natural face was that of an internet celebrity. With a happy gaze, she extended a deck of poker cards. "ENV handsome bro, let's play a game," the beauty said with a wink. Chu Xian was stunned for a second before he noticed another young woman beside the first with a tablet pointed in his direction. He asked inquisitively, "Are you a streamer by any chance?" I didn't expect you to know any streamers. Have you watched streams? The ones in nature, the beautiful girl replied while giggling in delight. I don't really watch streams, Chu Xian answered. Chapter 8. Popular streamer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen_the beauty was disappointed and said, I'm a streamer on Douyu, you can check it out when you're bored. My name is Witch, 1, handsome. Shall we play? Chu Xian looked at the beautiful girl making this request and nodded, sure, what's the game? It's very simple. Witch replied with a smile, extending the cards in her hand. I have a deck of cards. Let's play the simplest game, high and low. We each pick a card with the ace as the smallest and king as the highest and compare whose card is bigger. High and low, sure. Chu Xian said casually with a nod. That's great. Since we're gambling with high and low, we obviously have to bet something. What do you say? Witch said, cocking an eyebrow with an expression like she'd just hooked a fish. A bet. What do you want to bet? Chu Xian asked curiously, then glanced at the girl with the tablet on the side. Huh, this loser is going to get wrecked. Look at this perv, his eyes staring at our witch. Just by looking at him you can tell he's a tissue. Too. Driver Witch is about to start the car, vroom vroom, 3, everyone buckle in. Starting the engine, engaging the gears, turning on the front light, checking the rear view mirror. Vroom. Hee hee. Handsome, don't look, the beauty with the tablet said when she saw Chu Xian looking over. After hiding and retreating a few steps, she continued aiming the camera at Chu Xian and the streamer girl. Come on, handsome. Let's not bet money. Let's play truth or dare instead, and whoever loses can ask the other a question or ask them to do something, okay, the witch said, giggling. Sure. Chu Xian said. Since he already agreed, he just had to see where this went. Okay then. Take this card and check if there's anything wrong with it, Witch said while passing Chu Xian a card. Chu Xian nodded and took the card, flipped it over and checked it. Then he shook his head, saying, there's no problem. That's good, Witch said and took back the card. Since there's no problem, let's begin. After shuffling the cards and fanning them out she asked, you first or me? Either way is good. Chu Xian replied and randomly picked a card. Okay, since you picked, I'll pick now, the witch said, picking a card as well. Chu Xian showed his card, 9 of spades, not too bad. The witch's eyes sparkled as she flipped her own card and said, you lose, mine is a queen of spades. Chu Xian shook his head and said, okay I lose, a bet is a bet. Hee hee, the witch laughed, pleased. She walked over to the girl with the tablet and asked the audience, everybody, give suggestions. What truth should I ask? What dare should I make him do? Chu Xian curiously walked over and glanced at the viewer suggestions in the chat. 110,000 people, 4. That's a lot. Chu Xian exclaimed with surprise, but when he saw the suggestions flooding the screen, his face turned black. Ask him if he ever at a dog. Which, ask him how long he lasts. Ask him if his girlfriend is tasty down there. Make him do the dog by the side. Host, get him to take off his pants and entertain us. Hee hee, can you guys stop being so evil? I'm still a pure and innocent young girl, the witch said with a cute laugh. Okay, handsome. You lost the first time, and I'm too embarrassed to ask these outrageous questions. I'll start with an easy one. How many times can you do it in one night? The witch asked mockingly. Chu Xian looked speechlessly at her, then answered honestly, 3 times, but if you count the morning then 4 times. Wow. So strong, the best guys in the movies I've watched can only do it twice, the witch replied with a pointed look. Only 4. Too weak, I can do it 7 times in a night, call me 7 times Lang. One night past 10 times. Only once, but lasting the whole night. BNOL.M. When my wife and her two friends were talking, the first asked, "How many times can your husband do it in one night, and how long does each time last?" "My husband can do it 3 times in one night, and each time lasts half an hour, isn't he something?" The second one said, "That's nothing, my husband can do it 5 times in one night, each time with 20 different positions." My wife said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, "Every time my husband does it, it's only for 5 minutes." The first woman replied, "Ah. You poor thing, your husband is too weak." My wife replied weakly, "But he keeps shooting for the whole 5 minutes. Which is going to start her engine again, buckle in guys." The chat had all kinds of comments popping up, and Chu Xian was speechless when he saw them all. He, okay, the witch smiled and said, "Let's start the next round." Chu Xian had no objections, so he nodded his head and took another card. When the witch revealed her king of hearts, Chu Xian frowned. Looking speechlessly at the queen of spades in his hand, he said, "I lost again." "I choose truth, ask your question." "Witch, ask him how he survived so long when he's so stupid." "Haha. Our witch is a magician. In the end, this poor is going to be destroyed. Witch's nickname is 100 Slayer. Playing this game, she never loses." Chu Xian accidentally saw the comments from several of the viewers and glanced at the witch's smug face with a frown. What's the best question to ask this time?" "When was your first time and who did you give it to?" the witch asked with a face full of derision. "Sophomore year in college, to my girlfriend," Chu Xian answered immediately. "Are you sure you didn't give it to your right hand?" the witch asked with a huge smile. "Well, if you count my hand then I can't remember when." "Haha, okay, I'll let that one go. Let's continue. If you lose again I'll ask a more vicious question," the witch warned him. "That's fine," Chu Xian said with a meaningful look. "Okay. You said it yourself. When the time comes, you can't back out." 100,000 people are watching, the witch said, laughing excitedly. "You go first." "You first this time," Chu Xian said, not taking her card. "If that's what you want, I'll go," the witch said casually, picking a card. Chu Xian smiled, and willing it, used his control ability. Suddenly, he had a god's view. 5, every time he shifted his focus by 1 meter, everything within an 8-meter diameter came into his view. King of Diamonds. So she really can get a big card every time. Chu Xian looked at the fanned-out cards, picked a card, and flipped it with a confident smile. "Big King, the biggest card," Chu Xian said. Chapter 9. God of Gambling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Aristofaniso editor. Karen_the witch was stunned for a moment at his lucky draw. With an unhappy face, she said, "Truth. Go ahead and ask." 666, 1, he really has dog sh*t's luck, 2. This guy actually stumbled into the big king. Impressive, bro, you're the first to beat the witch. Please ask what position the witch likes. I only want to know what type of man the witch likes. Do I qualify? After Chu Xian picked the big king and won, all the viewers made a riot in the chat and poked fun at the witch. Are you still a virgin? Chu Xian asked with a smirk. The witch was stunned for a moment. Glaring at him, she replied, "You tell me, I'm only 18. Of course I am. 18. Chu Xian asked with disbelief. You're 18. No way. What? Do you want to see my ID before you believe me? Let me tell you, I'm only a freshman in college, a genuine 18-year-old. How old do you think I am? The witch said with an angry huff. Okay. I believe you. Chu Xian said without any sincerity, staring at her confusedly, with at least a C cup and such a great body, was she really only 18? Humph. Just you wait, the witch said with a glare. Let's continue, let me see if you can get so lucky the next time. Then I'll pick first. Chu Xian said with a smile of confidence, reaching out and selecting a specific card. The witch watched his movements carefully, and as he picked the card, her expression changed. Chu Xian smiled, immediately flipped the card and said, "Sorry, Big King again. Are you still going to pick?" "No need. I pick truth again," the witch said, gritting her teeth with some uncertainty in her heart. With the roles reversed, Chu Xian mercilessly pressed on, "Who do you fantasize about sexually?" "No one," the witch cried, grinding her teeth and glaring angrily, hating that she couldn't devour him alive. Chu Xian was amused by her and asked, "Are you sure there's no one? When you pick truth, you can't lie." "I am 100% certain," the witch said with a miserable expression. A great god. Could the witch have encountered a legendary god of gambling? Picking the Big King twice in a row, this luck is heaven-defying. "Brother, if you go there's a chance the prostitute won't charge you." Haha. Look at witch's expression. This guy's too handsome, he's the first to ever embarrass the witch. The viewers all responded excitedly to Chu Xian's second win. "One more?" Chu Xian asked with a big smile. "Of course, one more. Don't think you're a big shot just because you won twice with luck," said the witch, unwilling to back down. She shuffled the cards in her hand. "Okay then, I'm going to pick first again," Chu Xian said. With his god's eye view, he easily located the biggest card and reached his hand towards it. Even the witch didn't know where the Big King was after she shuffled the deck, she only remembered the position of the small king and the King of Hearts. Chu Xian picked out the Big King and gestured for the witch to pick again. The witch humphed and picked the small king, flipping it over while saying, "I don't believe you have the Big King now. Sorry to disappoint." Chu Xian said with a shrug as he flipped the card. "It's still the Big King. You lose again, truth or dare." The witch's face darkened instantly and grinding her teeth, she said, "Truth." "Okay." Chu Xian said with a smile. "Then I'm going to help the viewers ask a question, what kind of position do you like?" "You," the witch said, blushing with embarrassment and quivering angrily. "It's fine if you don't want to answer, I won't force you." Chu Xian laughed lightly, a little embarrassed at the witch's expression. 666. God of gambling, this time the witch has kicked a rock. I only want to know what position the witch likes, so I can practice for her and master it. Are you going to practice with a dog? So impressive, baby. The witch stuttered and glared, I've never even had it, you tell me how I'd know what position I like. Heh, Chu Xian chuckled and decided not to press her any further. Okay, that's fine, now I'll ask you a simpler one. What's your type? As long as he isn't like you then I'm fine, the witch said with a huff. Chu Xian laughed. I guess that counts. Do you still want to play? Yes. Of course I'll play, the witch took back the Big King with a glare and shuffled the cards. This time I pick first, she said, before immediately picking a card. Eddie Chu Xian looked at the card in her hand and with a smile on his face said, since you shuffled, shouldn't you let me pick first? What? A grown man like you cares about these small things. Are you a man or not? The witch said shamelessly. I just think it's a little unfair. Chu Xian said with a shake of his head. You shuffled, picked first and just happened to pick the Big King. How am I supposed to play? The right way to play is either you shuffle and I pick or I shuffle and you pick. Don't you think? The witch's expression kept changing. She was certain now that this man with a slightly shameless smile was a pro, much better than her. No way. You have to play with my rules. Hurry up, it's your turn and you have to pick, the witch replied. She had been forced into a corner and could only uphold her position shamelessly. You already have the Big King in your hand, it's meaningless for me to pick. This isn't fair. Chu Xian said while shrugging his shoulders in defeat. Holy crap, look at the witch's expression. Looks like this big bro guessed right, this god of gambling. I can't believe the witch just stumbled into a gambling god, so amazing. Haha. Now things are getting interesting. What's the witch going to do next? Given her character, this guy is still doomed. I support this big bro. It's always been the witch playing others, this time she finally failed and now she's the one being played. All the viewers in the chat room typed excitedly while the pretty girl with the tablet watched speechlessly. Then I won't play, Chu Xian said with a firm shake of the head. You, the witch said, glaring at him, but she was powerless to convince him otherwise. Chu Xian was like a dead pig unafraid of boiling water, reacting to nothing. She'd already acted shamelessly before, and now she couldn't take it back. Translator's thoughts. Aristofaniso, 1. So 6 is pronounced lu, which is phonetically similar to another word that basically means smooth, i.e. well done. 666 is then slang for incredibly smooth plays. If a game streamer does something really sick, then a lot of people spam 666666666. 2. Gaoxian, phrase comes from the old society in China when there was not a lot of chemical fertilizer. People had to use human feces as fertilizer to supplement this, but there was not enough poop to go around. So, some people started to use dog shit, and fertilizer had such a high demand that they found they could even sell the dog shit to other farmers for money. The people that could collect more dog shit could make more money. Henceforth, they were dubbed as having Goshiyun, dog shit fortune. https://www.echinsellearning.com/blog/the.hilarious.chinese.word.u.must.know.4. Chapter 10. Internet Publicity. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Translator. Aristofaniso Editor. Karen_Xiao Man, turn off the stream. Today's stream is over, the witch said with an angry huff. Xiao Man bitterly nodded her head and said to the camera, handsome guys and beautiful ladies in the chat, today's show ends here. Don't forget to subscribe to the witch's Taobao store. And cut. Xiao Man said. The viewers were still bubbling with excitement when she exited the stream and put away her device. When Chu Xian heard this last sentence, he was dazed for a bit. Then, an idea popped into his head. His eyes shone with an unusual light as he looked at the witch. Let's go. We can find a place to gamble for real, the witch said, to his surprise. BL.net, I'm not playing, but if you want we can have some tea, Chu Xian said helplessly. The witch's expression changed back and forth. She was a streamer and a magician, though the cards in her hand seemed normal, any good magician could figure out something was off. If Chu Xian wasn't a magician, then he had to be a pro-gambler. Just judging from past experience, he was probably the latter. This situation made her curious and she wanted to figure him out. But Chu Xian's straightforward answer rendered her speechless. All she could do for a moment was stand and stare at him. Why don't you both come into my shop and sit? Chu Xian graciously extended the invitation. He had some ideas of his own as well. Okay, the witch agreed without hesitation. Her eyes brightened as she curiously asked, what's your shop? Is it a casino? Chu Xian's face turned black. Without any pleasantry, he replied, where do you think we are? Macau. A casino. After saying these words, he walked to the small shop nearby and took out the keys. Ah. This, the witch said, with some disappointment. The store had the 3 words ornamental fish shop carved onto a wooden board hanging in front. Chu Xian didn't pay her any mind, it was best if they came in, but it didn't matter much to him if they didn't, his idea would just go smoother if they helped him. You sell small goldfish? The girls asked after walking into the shop and seeing all the tanks and fish. Of course. I'm just an ornamental fish vendor, not some magician, and certainly not a god of gambling like you thought. Water. Chu Xian asked. I'm not thirsty. Then how'd you know which card was which? The witch asked curiously. I just have a good memory. When you showed me the cards, I remembered the order, Chu Xian lied. That's simple, the witch said in disbelief. That's simple. I really don't know any magic tricks, and I definitely don't have any gambling skills. Chu Xian said with a shrug. Fine then, the witch said, disappointed. Looking at Chu Xian's honest expression and at the fish in his shop, she turned away, bored. Okay, can I ask you a question? Chu Xian asked hurriedly when he saw her preparing to leave. What kind of question? I didn't lose to you, so if you ask any weird questions I'm not going to answer, the witch replied with a wary look. Chu Xian muttered, a little speechless. Waving his hand he said, it's nothing like that. I just wanted to ask, if you help me sell my fish online, how much would that cost? You want me to sell fish? The witch said, full of surprise. Pointing at the ornamental fish she said, you're asking me to advertise your shop, selling these small fish. You're better off without me, the advertising fee would be more expensive than all these fish together. Of course I'm not asking you to advertise these common ornamental fish. If I want you to stream the fish I want, how much would that be? Chu Xian asked again. The witch said hesitantly. I've never done any advertising, much less advertising on a stream. I think I'll pass. Chu Xian was a little disappointed at the witch's refusal, but after thinking a little, he asked again, then where do you think would be the best place to advertise ornamental fish? I'm also not sure, but if you want to sell your fish, you can try the Fast Hands app. You can post videos of your fish or stream them live and introduce them that way, the witch suggested. Fast Hands, Chu Xian muttered. He immediately used his phone to download the app. He'd played with this app for a little bit before, and it had some funny videos, big boobs and slender leg videos, pretty much an entertainment platform, but after he switched phones, he hadn't bothered to download it again. You also used this Fast Hands app? Chu Xian lifted his head and asked. Of course. I have more than 2 million fans, the witch replied with some satisfaction. Oh. What's your account number? Let me check it out. Chu Xian looked at the witch's profile, and it was true, she did have 2 million plus fans. He said, okay then beautiful lady, 1, can you follow me? I'll post some goldfish videos later. If you want any, I'll give you a discount. The witch's mouth twitched, but she didn't refuse. Fine, give me your account number and I'll follow you. Chu Xian nodded. The two girls left after a few more minutes. Afterwards, Chu Xian immediately closed the door. Turning towards the 100+ goldfish, he began to remold them one at a time. By the time night came, Chu Xian had only molded a little over 50 of the goldfish divided among 8 varieties in 5 hours. Remolding was both time and energy consuming. After rubbing his eyes a little, Chu Xian turned back to his beautiful, luxurious goldfish. Smiling, he scooped out a panda goldfish and put it into a small tank by itself. Chu Xian took out his phone and started filming with the app. After filming a couple of different videos, Chu Xian chose the one that he liked best, and after some thought, he wrote in the text section. Selling all kinds of precious ornamental goldfish. Panda goldfish video, price 2,000 renminbi. If you're interested, please add me on WeChat. 15xxxxxx. Chu Xian clicked the Submit button and reviewed his My Works tab with satisfaction. Pushing open the shop door, Chu Xian left and looked for a restaurant to have dinner. After returning, Chu Xian started his battle once again and continued remolding until all the fish had been transformed. After stopping an hour to midnight, Chu Xian looked at all the tanks full of exquisite goldfish with a face full of excitement. After taking out his mat and blanket, Chu Xian dove under the covers and took out his phone. Opening the Fast Hands app, he clicked on the My Works tab. 30,000 clicks. Chu Xian said with shock. It looks like I'm trending. Chu Xian happily looked through the trending searches and started reading the comments. Having so many people viewing his work could spread the news about his goldfish quickly. Translator's thoughts. Aristophaneso 1. So, lit. Handsome brother and beautiful woman, is a very common way to address people in Chinese. My impression is that, handsome bro, is used slightly more often than, but they are both pretty neutral. It's not creepy to say this, and it also is not necessarily very truthful either, but my impression is that tends to be more truthful, but I'm not sure.